Jayanilo Premadana Karuna Prachur Nilo Premadana Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Dasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kaha Mor Bhatta Juga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kali Kota Gela Gora Nataraj Bhashane Kuti Bo Mata Annale Pashibo Gauranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pabo Gele Pabo Se Samba Sangira Sangi Jekoilo Bila Se Sangana Paya Kande Naruttamada Jayanilo Premadana Karuna Prachur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Dasa Kaviraja? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Hare Krishna. So, let me... Thank you. So on this 24th day of January 2022 in San Diego, it is the disappearance day of Sri Lochana Dasa Thakura, and we'll read about him, and also Sri Jayadeva Goswami, whose disappearance day was yesterday. Sri Lochana Dasa Thakura was a disciple of Sri Narahari Sarakara Thakura, a dearest associate of Lord Gaura Rai, that's Lord Chaitanya. Quote, "My hope of hopes is to be near the lotus feet of Sri Narottam Das Thakura and serve him with my very life. The cherished desire of the fallen Lochana Das is to be allowed by Narahari's grace to sing the glories of Lord Gauranga. My Lord is Sri Narahari Thakura, and I am his servant. Bowing before him, I beg for his service. This is my only aspiration." This is Lochana Dasa's Chaitanya Mangala. Quote, Lochana Dasa Thakura wrote Chaitanya Mangala, which tells many pastimes of Lord Chaitanya not revealed by Vrindavana Dasa Thakura in his Chaitanya-bhagavata, or Krishna Dasa Kaviraja in his Chaitanya-caritamrta. He, Lochana Dasa, mentions an especially touching conversation Sri Gaurasundar had with Vishnu Priya Devi the night before he took sannyas. Being a talented musician, Lochana Dasa told Mahaprabhu's pastimes in beautiful poetry filled with fire and rhythm. Common people could easily understand the divine character of Sri Chaitanya and awaken their religious feelings, as devotees regularly chant the Vedic epics Ramayana and Mahabharata. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas still wander throughout Bengal reciting the Chaitanya Mangala. Lochana Dasa Thakura also wrote many songs praising Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Gauridas Pandit. Lochana Dasa stresses that Raganuga Bhaktas must take shelter of Gadadhar Vrindavaneshwari to attain Radha Govinda Prema Bhakti. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to print and distribute Lochana Dasa Thakura's Sri Chaitanya Mangala. Srila Prabhupada was very fond of his bhajans. While singing Parama Karuna, Srila Prabhupada would plunge into the ocean of Gauranga Prema. Prabhupada wrote an extensive commentary on this bhajan. Bhajo Bhajo Bhai, Chaitanya Nitai, Sudada Vishwasa Kori. Quote, Lochana Dasa asks everyone, "My dear brother, just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm faith and conviction. Don't think that this chanting and dancing will not lead to the desired goal. It will. It is the assurance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one will get all perfection by this process. Therefore one must chant with firm faith and conviction." Lochana Dasa Thakura's samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area. And then from Jayadeva Goswami. 300 years before the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Jayadeva Goswami served as the court pandit of Shri Lakshmana Sena, the king of Bengal. Jayadeva and Padmavati, his wife and an expert dancer, used to worship Lord Sri Krishna with single-minded devotion. After some time, he left the opulent royal life to live peacefully in a grass hut in Champahatti, Navadwipa. Here, Jayadeva wrote Gita Govinda. One day, while working on the Gita Govinda, Jayadeva felt inspired to write, quote, "Krishna bows down to touch the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani." This was all written in Sanskrit, by the way. Jayadeva was hesitant to say something which might diminish Lord Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he didn't write it. He didn't actually write it. He went to refresh himself with the Ganges bath before honoring Radhamadhava's Mahaprasadam. In his absence, Krishna himself, disguised as Jayadeva, came into his house, and his wife recognized him as her husband. He wrote a line in the Gita Govinda, "Dehi padapallavam udaram," which means Krishna bows down to the lotus feet of Radha. The Lord also accepted prasadam from Padmavati. Upon returning, Jayadeva was astonished to see the line. First of all, he asked, "What happened? It seemed like you're already taking prasadam. Usually the wife takes after the husband." So she thought that he had already eaten. And then he asked. Jayadeva was astonished. He looked at his manuscript and he was astonished to see the line. Understanding the mystery, Jayadeva cried in spiritual joy and said, "Padmavati, we are most fortunate. Sri Krishna himself has written this line, Dehi padapallavam udaram, and taken prasadam from your hand." Gita Govinda expresses the intense feelings of separation that Sri Radhika felt before the Rasa dance. It also describes the most intimate pastimes of Radha Shyamasundar. During Lord Chaitanya's Gambhira Leela in Jagannath Puri, that's when he's staying in this very small compound, he would thoroughly relish hearing the Gita Govinda sung daily by Swarup Damodar and Mukunda. The author Jayadeva Goswami describes Gita Govinda. Whatever is delightful in varieties of music, whatever is graceful in fine strains of poetry, and whatever is exquisite in the sweet art of love, let the happy and wise learn from the songs of Jayadev. After finishing the Gita Govinda, Jayadev visited Vrindavan and then lived his last days in Jagannath Puri. He introduced daily reading of the Gita Govinda in the temple for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath. His samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area. Jayadeva Goswami ki jai. And now, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Time out. I think Govardhan, it's a little high for me. On this 24th day of January 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 5, The Creative Impetus, Chapter 12, Conversation between Maharaj Rahugana and Jadabharata. Text number 10. Evam Krisham Stulam Anur Brihad Yad Asach Chasaj Jivam Ajivam Anyat Dravya Swabhavashaya Kalakarma Namna Jayabehi Kritam Vitiyam Evam Krisham Stula Manur Brihadyad Asatya Sajivam Ajivam Anyat Dravya Swabhavashaya Kala Karma Namna Jayavehi Kritam Dvitiyam Evam Krisham Stula Manur Brihadyad Asatya Sajivam Ajivam Anyat Dravya Swabhavashaya Kala Karma Namnam Jayavehi Kritam Dvitiyam. Please chant. Evam Krisham Stula Manur Brihadyad Asatya Sajivam Ajivam Anyat Swabhavashaya Kala Karma Namna Jayavehi Kritam Dvitiyam. Evam Krisham Stula Manur Brihadyad Asatya Sanjivam Ajivam Anyat Vyasvabhavashaya Kala Karma Namna Jayavehi Kritam Dvitiyam. Anyone else? Anyone in Zoom? Evam
Krisham Stulam Anur Brihadyad
Evam Krisham Stulam Anur Brihadyad
Asatya Sajivam Ajivam Anyat
Asatya Sanjivam Ajivam Anyat
Dravya Swabhavashaya Kala Karma
Dravya Swabhavashaya Kala Karma
Namna Jayavehi Kritam Dvitiyam.
Namna Jayavehi Kritam Dvitiyam. Thank you. I'm assuming you didn't want to try.
Look, there is one more person who wants to try.
I think I should read the synonyms. We're behind. I'm going to read the synonyms. Evam Thus, Krisham, skinny or short, Stulam, fat, Anuhu, tiny, Brihat, big, Yat, which, Asat, impermanent, Cha, and, Sat, existing. That's where you went. Thank you. Ajivam, I'm sorry, did I skip one? Jivam, the living entities. Ajivam, inanimate, lifeless matter. Anyat, other causes. Dravya, phenomena. Swabhava, nature. Ashaya, disposition. Kala, time. Karma, activities. Namna, only by such names. Ajaya, by material nature. Avehi, you should understand. Kritam, done. Tvitiyam, duality. Translation. So this is Jadabharata continuing to preach to King Rahugana. Since this universe has no real ultimate existence, the things within it, shortness, differences, grossness, skinniness, smallness, bigness, result, cause, living symptoms, and materials, are all imagined. They are all pots made of the same substance, earth, but they are named differently. The differences are characterized by the substance, nature, predisposition, time, and activity. You should know that all these are simply mechanical manifestations created by material nature. Purport. The temporary manifestations and varieties within this material world are simply creations of material nature under various circumstances. Prakate kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. The actions and reactions carried out by the material nature are sometimes accepted as our scientific inventions. Therefore, we want to take credit for them and defy the existence of God. This is ascribed in the Bhagavad Gita 3:27, and then he gives the second half of the verse he just quoted. Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Due to being covered by the illusory external energy, the living entity tries to take credit for the differentiated creations within the material world. Actually, all these are being created automatically by the material force set in motion by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the ultimate cause is the Supreme Person, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda sarva-kāraṇa-kāraṇam. He is the cause of all causes, the ultimate cause. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says, and who is that cause of all causes? Govinda. And Madhvacharya says, Evam sarvam tata prakritvayai kalpitam vishnuranyat evam prakrtiyadhara swayam annayanyadharo vishnureva atak sarva shabdas chatasmineva. Actually, the original cause is Lord Vishnu, but out of ignorance, people think that matter is the cause of everything. Raja goptashrayo bhumi shadanam cheti laukikaha vyavaharo natat satyam tayo brahmashrayo vimuhu. This also seems to be from Madhvacharya. Things are contemplated on the ephemeral or external platform, but actually this is not the truth. The actual protector and shelter of everyone is Brahman, the Supreme, not the king. Goptri cha tasya prakritis tasya Vishnu swayam prabhu tava goptri tu prithvi natvam gopta chite smataha atak sarvashriyais chaiva gopta cha harir ishvaraha sarva shabdadi vedeyascha shabda vritter hi karanam sarvantarak sarva bahir eka eva janardanaha. The actual protectress is the material nature, but Vishnu is her Lord. He is the Lord of everything. Lord Janardana is the director both externally and internally. He is the cause of the function of words and what is expressed in all sound. Shirasodarata yadvad grivayas tadvadevatu ashrayatvam cha goptritvam anyesham upacharataha. Lord Vishnu is the resting place of the entire creation. Brahmanohi pratishtaham, Bhagavad Gita 14:27. Upon Brahman, everything is resting. And this verse says, Brahman is resting on me. All the universes are resting on the Brahmajyoti, and all the planets are resting on the universal atmosphere. In each and every planet, there are oceans, hills, states, and kingdoms, and each planet is giving shelter to so many living entities. They are all standing on the earth of feet and legs, torso and shoulders, but actually everything is resting ultimately on the potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is known ultimately as sarva-kāraṇa-kāraṇam, the cause of all causes. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Udmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession of Acharyas. So, there's one verse in the 11th canto, which I like to refer to, which also describes the same point, that everything, all the varieties of this material world that we experience and we take so seriously and we write books about and philosophies and go to war over and everything, is ultimately nothing more substantial than a dream. And but it also tells us in this verse and in the commentary how we should react to that truth and understanding. So if you'll permit me just a little more reading here. This is from the 11th canto, Chapter 2, text 38. It's in the teachings of the 9 Yogendras to Maharaj Nimi. This is the second of those teachings. I'm not going to read the whole purport, it's quite long. Avidyamano vyabhabati hidvayo dhyatur dya swaptamano ratao yata tat karma sankalpa vakalpakam mano buddho narudhyad abhayam tatatsyat. Now before I read the translation here, the context is that Maharaj Nimi wanted to know how to reach the ultimate good. What is it? And how can I reach it? And so this is the first teaching. This is the first of the 9 Yogendras speaking. And he explains that the real problem, or the symptom of our problem, is constant fear. Is a fear in this material world. It may not be always evident, but there's always this anxiety, what's going to happen next? And so the origin of that fear is that we've turned away from Krishna. Isham apetasya viparyosmati. And we've forgotten asmriti, our relationship with Krishna, and we're upside down. Our consciousness is upside down. Meaning that instead of understanding the truth, which is we're eternal servants of God, we're thinking that we're the masters and controllers and enjoyers of this material world. And so the cure for that is to once again turn toward the Lord and reawaken our natural relationship of service to Him. And that requires a guru who we have to worship as our very self and friend and equal to God. So that's the previous verse. And this verse continues to describe. So the translation is, although the duality of the material world, this is dvitiya, this is dualities of this world that we become absorbed in. Although the dualities of the material world do not ultimately exist, the conditioned soul experiences it as real under the influence of his own conditioned intelligence. This imaginary experience of a world separate from Krishna can be compared to the acts of dreaming and desiring. When the conditioned soul dreams at night of something desirable or horrible, or when he daydreams of what he would like to have or avoid, he creates a reality that has no existence beyond his own imagination. The tendency of the mind is to accept and reject various activities based on sense gratification. Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, he will experience actual fearlessness. Now, if you recall, the previous chapter in the instructions of Jadbhara to Rahugana was all about the mind. How the mind, in the conditioned state, is our worst enemy. Because it's all of its thoughts and desires and fears are preventing us from understanding our real nature and preventing us from seeing the world as it really is, as a result of Krishna's energies, or a manifestation of Krishna's energies. And that our place in it, we're also His energy, is to recognize our position as His servants and utilize as much of that energy, beginning with our own bodies, in the service of the Lord, and thus reform our consciousness and return back home, back to Godhead. So I'm going to read part of this purport, which is, I think, the whole point of why Rahugana is speaking this why Jadbhara is speaking to Rahugana. Although the conditioned mind, now this purport is composed by Vrindavana Dasa Goswami, this is part of the Bhagavatam. Although the conditioned mind is bewildered by the objects of sense gratification offered by Maya, illusion, If one takes to the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, such material sense gratification gradually dissipates. Our attractive for that sense attraction dissipates. For it is merely a mental concoction of the conditioned soul. Srila Sri Swami has emphasized by the words Abhyabhicharini Bhakti that one cannot dissipate the illusion of material sense gratification unless one takes to the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. So just understanding the philosophy and meditating on it like the impersonalists do, understanding that I'm pure spirit and I have nothing to do with matter, will not do it. One has to engage one's soul in the service of the Lord and reawaken the natural love for Krishna. So that's a very important point. So he quotes here, as Rupa Goswami says, Anya Bilashida Shunyam Jnana Karma Jnanavritam Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam Bhakti Ruttama. Unalloyed devotional service cannot be mixed with material sense gratification or mental speculation. The servant must act only for the satisfaction of the master. Similarly, Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, Mam ekam sharanam braja. This is in the famous verse, Sarva-dharma parityajya. One must see only Krishna everywhere and must act exclusively for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna, the eternal master of every living entity. I'm going to skip here and read this last paragraph. This is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He sums up the whole point here. Control of the mind is a result of living a life of devotional service to the Lord. By the influence of fixed devotional service, the accepting and rejecting mind can stop its thirst for sensory enjoyment apart from Krishna. In transcendental Krishna consciousness, there is no contradiction, pettiness, or lack of ecstasy. In other words, it is not like a material object which always proves temporary and constantly miserable. Having forgotten Krishna, the conditioned living entity is suffering the misdirection and perversion of his own so-called intelligence. The living entities are fragmental parts of the supreme shelter, Krishna, but have fallen from Krishna's kingdom of spiritual pastimes. I'm going to research that. This is a direct statement that's attributed to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, how he fell from the pastimes of the Lord. Because of forgetting the Supreme Lord, they become prone to sinful life and turn their attention to dangerous material objects, which fill them with constant fear. If one desires to subdue the mind, which is constantly engaged in the duality of mental concoction, one must take to the devotional service of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. So, this whole chapter that we're reading back in the 5th canto, he just had a whole prelude describing the basic unreality of our understanding of this world. As all of these different varieties that we see, it's all simply made from the energy of Krishna. And if we forget that, we become bewildered by this phantasmagoria of material variety, and we're constantly, the mind is constantly saying, yes, go for that. That's pleasurable for the senses. And there is some fleeting pleasure for the senses. But as Prabhupada famously says in the Bhagavad Gita, that pleasure, that happiness you attain from sense gratification is the worst enemy of the conditioned soul. Because it gives you a impetus to try for it again and again and again, and eventually you can't enjoy it. And so you leave your body with that desire and millions of others unfulfilled, taken to another body. And because of the way in which karma covers our intelligence, this is such an important part of the Bhagavad Gita at the end of the 3rd chapter, where Arjuna asks this question, Attakena payakto yam papam charati purusha anichanna vivarshana kim ivajiyojita. I forget one word there. It says, what is it that forces one to perform activities that one may actually know intellectually or guess one's best interest? How do we get into this situation? So Krishna answers, kama esha, krodha esha. It is lust, Arjuna, and which is then transformed into wrath, very powerful anger, when our desires are unfulfilled, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the living entity. And what's the first result of that, of surrendering to that lust? Abritam jnanametena jnananunativaidana. We are jnanina. We are by nature knowledgeable of Krishna and our actual Swarup, our real nature. But that all becomes covered. Abrita means covered. The real knowledge is covered by lust, and we begin our sojourn in the material world with these gross and subtle coverings that serve as a covering of our knowledge and a means, however imperfect, of trying to fulfill these unfulfillable desires born of material lust. And kama, Prabhupada says very, very tellingly, kama is nothing but prema that has been adulterated and perverted by contact with the modes of material nature. So that kama, that desire, we can't kill it. We can't, that's fallacious. It has to be sublimated. It has to be purified again back into prema, and that's the whole art and science of bhakti yoga. You know, we want to eat something, okay, we learn that, oh, we satisfy that desire through prasadam, and it becomes a sacrament, it becomes holy, and it becomes a step in bhakti, rather than a step down to hell, because you can eat all kinds of things that we know is horrible. So, and that's true of everything. The eyes want to see beautiful things, the ears want to hear beautiful sounds, and you notice that the artik is fulfilling for all the senses. You have, of course, the vision of the deities, and of the sound of the holy name, and beautiful songs about Krishna. And then gradually the lamp comes around, oh, okay, there's the touch sensation. The incense is there for the nose, right? And of course you're hearing, you're seeing, and finally the prasadam is there. And we have, in the morning song, the Gurvashtaka, right? We have the spiritual master, out of his mercy, he teaches the basic process. Right? The first is he's an ocean of mercy, cloud of mercy, raining down, putting out the forest fire of material life. Well, how does he do it? Next verse is about Sankirtan. He himself is ecstatic in experiencing, chanting the holy name, and he's teaching us that also. And then he takes the trouble to establish temples and to teach his disciples how to perform arti and do everything with the temples are very important, because they provide a way in which the senses can be engaged in Krishna's service. We can see and serve him. Otherwise, in the spiritual realm, we can't see these senses. And so what do we have? We have all of these experiences I just mentioned, and then the fourth verse is about prasadam. Is that, oh, he's very happy, not when taking the prasadam, but seeing he's happy to take prasadam, but he's mostly happy to see his people becoming the Krishna conscious, taking prasadam, being sanctified and being purified like that. So that's what bhakti is all about, taking this material desire, which is binding us to this world life after life, and purifying it through the activities of bhakti, so that the senses, the mind, the intelligence all become purified simply by being connected to Krishna. So this is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, wonderful explanation of this. And there's other commentaries, but it's a long purport. In this part of the Bhagavatam, Maharaj was simply a lot of translating a lot of the commentators. It's a wonderful section. The early part of the 11th canto, I would highly recommend it. So what do we get out of all of this? This fifth canto is telling us in no uncertain terms, Jadabharat is revealing how all of this variety that we see in the material world, it's ultimately like a dream. And why? Because it doesn't last. This is the word between sat and asat. Second chapter of Bhagavatam. Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. And this is that those who have seen the truth have realized the truth, that of the asat, there's no ultimate existence. Na asato vidyate bhava. Bhava means endurance, and means real existence. And of the sat, there's no end, there's no loss of existence. So what is really real? In the purport, Prabhupada said these words sat and asat mean existent and non-existent. So this can be a little confusing, because we very much make a differentiation between ourselves and the Mayavadis, or the impersonalists who follow the Charika Bhasha, who say that this world is unreal. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, it's false. And we say, no, it's not false, it's temporary. In other words, but in another sense, our understanding of what this world is like a dream. We are projecting our desires and our fears and everything on this material world, which is nothing but the entity of Krishna. So bhakti begins by learning to see. This is like the first step in God realization in the second canto, and also the seventh chapter, which is the first of the middle 6 chapters, which Prabhupada explains are the essence of the Gita. And that where Krishna, he declares all that you're experiencing, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, solid matter, what else are we experiencing here, is nothing but my energies. Binna prakriti rashtada. And there is a higher energy, para prakriti, which consists of these living entities. And everything you see is nothing but a combination of those two. And we, as the living entities, we're exploiting and trying to dominate, configurations of this material energy. And each time, whatever lifetime we may be in, a human life or a demigod life or a bug's life, we ultimately fail, right? The whole thing comes to nothing because we die, we're separated from everything, we go on to another life and start all over again. So what is the real substance of all this? Prabhupada would talk about sometimes the empires, the Napoleon and others who had empires. Well, where are they now? Where is the French Empire? Where is Napoleon? They have the statue in the square somewhere in Paris, But Napoleon is long gone. The soul, which is really Napoleon, who knows where he is now? So everything in the material world is like that. And in Krishna consciousness, we're meant to rise up to the platform of equipoise, where we're not being ripped around, our mind is not being thrown this way and that way by attraction to this, repulsion from that, this idea, how to increase that, and because it's ultimately futile. It's a waste of time. It's a tragic waste of time of the human form of life. The solution to all the problems that we have, that not just our own personal problems, but social problems and economic problems, everything, is recognizing the supremacy of the Lord, that this is all His energy and we're ultimately His servants, and learning the art of how to live in the world in such a way that we're not trying to enjoy the world, but trying to use whatever comes in our way in the service of the Lord, enjoying in that way. That's real happiness. That is where real bliss lies, not in some extreme material pleasure, some metaverse or whatever. It's all simply illusion on top of illusion. But the reality is Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's energies, Krishna himself, he is the source of it all. And the more that we can become Krishna conscious and give Krishna consciousness, which is the most pleasing activity to Krishna, the more we realize that real happiness lies in that. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, he was ideal Vaishnava, clearly, and he probably loved the verse. He quotes it so often. His father, right? He's in the school. His father doesn't know he's a devotee. So his father, he comes at home, and just like we had report cards, how is he doing? So there's no report card, but he wants to know, well, what did you learn today? What's the best thing you learned? And so right away, here's Prahlad, the ideal of speaking truth to power. He's completely fearless because he feels completely protected by Krishna. That's all he knows. He's from within the womb, he's been meditating on Krishna. So he says, Tat Sadhamanye Asudabhaya. He doesn't even address his father as father. He calls him the best of the demons. Asurya Tat Sadhamanye Asudabhaya Dehinam Sadasa Mudvigna Dhyama Sadgrahat Hitvatnapatam Griyam Andakupam Vanam Gadoyad Hadamashriyeta. In that one verse, he has all of the teachings that Hiranyakashipu didn't want to hear. So he says the best thing in this context, the word sadhu means the best. I think that the best thing I learned, Father, is best of the demons. For whom? For the dehis, for those who are embodied souls, us, who are always disturbed, sadasamudvigna dhyam, whose intelligence is always disturbed because a sadgrahat, we're holding on to and identifying with that which is temporary, beginning with the body. I mean, the fear that comes, that you're holding on to, this is who I am, and gradually it's getting older and more, invalid, and you realize, what's going on? All my money, my relationships, my relatives, my house, everything that I love I'm going to leave that. It's just terrifying. So that's, and even if you're in good health and you're young and everything, that's what's going to happen. So therefore, it's sadasa udvigna. Udvigna means disturbed in mind. So what's the solution? Without wasting time, hitvatnapatam, give up the griyamanda kupa, materialistic household life, which is like a blind well. And what to do? If I give it up, where do I go? Go to the forest, namely Vrindavan. That's explained in the commentary. And take shelter of Hari, Krishna. In other words, become a devotee. That's the last thing Hiranyakashipu wanted to hear. Hari was his arch enemy. He'd killed his brother in the form of Varaha. So anyway, so there's a whole pastime that culminates in, of course, Nrsingadeva appearing. But that verse is critical for our understanding. Is that all of the problems in this material world come from our illusion of being separate from Krishna, of having forgotten him due to the allurement of the material world and lifetimes of trying to fulfill our unfulfillable desires. So, understanding the truth of this first, and then accepting a preceptor who can guide us and who we can have faith in. And as it's stated in our other song that we sing about the Guru every morning, Guru Mukha Padmavati Chichate Koriya Aika Arna Koriya Manayasu, that one should accept the words of the preceptor as one's life and soul, and not via other things. And attraction for the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the best means of advancement. In other words, what motivates us to do anything? You know, certainly there's a certain amount of intellectual understanding. I should do this, but when you're overhauling your whole life and your whole perspective on life, you need that personal connection where your impetus for life. Okay, my spiritual masters ordered me to do this, although I don't want to do it. I mean, my mind and body is rebelling against it, but I know I should do it, and it will please him, and I love him, therefore I'm going to make the sacrifice. And you find out when you do that, and Prabhupada made the supreme sacrifice, risked his life to follow that order, come to America, that, you know, all the blessings are poured upon him. And Krishna makes some amazing arrangements for you to succeed when you're really surrendered like that, and that also you feel the presence of the Lord in your life, and so that's really the way out of this conundrum. And so we're hearing the same thing in the fifth canto, but he's going into great detail about how this is just dust, it's just Krishna's energy, and your being a king is some temporary designation, and you know he's just destroying all of the upadis. This is one of the definitions of. In the purport of Prabhupada quotes, I think was it here, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, the definition of pure devotional service. And there's another definition that's given right near that in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right in the beginning, first chapter. And they kind of go together. Savopadi vinimuktam, tatpadatvena nirmalam, rishikena rishikesha sevanam, bhaktaruchate. The definition of bhakti. So to be free of all these designations, you know, means that I'm a certain ethnicity, nationality, and even gender and age, and all of these things, and you know, other honors I've been getting and whatever. All of that are designations that really don't pertain to the soul; they're false. And so one has to be free of those. So vinimuktam, tatpada and nirmalam, and with the senses that we have, whatever we have at our disposal, rishikena, to serve the master of the senses, rishikesha, sevanam, that is the definition of bhakti. So that's what you learn when you come to the temple if you're going to live full time. One of the big things is, you know, how you look. I mean, when I have a couple of pictures of myself before I actually joined, but I was visiting the temple. And, you know, the hair is all there, you know, and the clothes that you have. I have a certain identity. It's natural. But then you come to the temple, oh my God, you want me to shave my head? Oh, you know, and that's a big thing, a big identification. The clothes, we didn't even have our own clothes. It was all a collective laundry at that time. And so the pictures I have, nothing matches, you know, and everything. Okay, who cares, you know? So all of these things help you to stay fixed in this sense of, I'm not who I was. You get a new identity. And then initiation, a new name. You know, it's important. It's always important. So the whole idea is for you to stop identifying with this false identification, upadi of the body, and identifying yourself as a soul, as the eternal servant of Krishna. So the whole process is designed to help us give up our false identity and take on our new identity, real identity. And that brings, you know, even in the initial stages, if you take it to it sincerely, especially the chanting, is such a way of immediately contacting Krishna. And the purification, the more you chant and the more you hear with careful attention, you're in the fire, the iron rod, your consciousness is in the fire of Krishna consciousness, and untold and ununderstandable benefits are coming. So much karma from millions of births, that you do it's eradicated. Karmani nirdahati kintu bhakti bhajam. We hear in the Brahma Samhita that for one who is the servant of Govinda, Govindamadi Purusham Dhammahamajani Bhajami, everyone's bound up from Indra down to the lowly germ. They're all bound by their karmas. It's unspooling. But for the devotee who's sincerely worshiping the Lord, the seeds of karma, which are ready to fructify, either piously or, but either way, it's binding, are burned up. In other words, this is how you can really get free from the bondage of karma, by bhakti. So, but you don't realize what's going on. You feel yourself lighter and generally more happier, and a lot of anxieties are going. But all kinds of stuff is being eradicated. So, we ultimately want to aim for the goal of bhakti, which is pure love for Krishna. But we should also be aware that there's so many preliminary benefits that come, and it's all auspicious. And Srila Prabhupada has given us this great treasure. Okay, it's a little late, so any comments, questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hold on, we have a local comment and question. We have a mic. Speak to the mic.
Yes, I can wait. No problem.
Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Oh, okay. I will next time. Yeah, is it on? Yeah, you're on. You're speaking to. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. When you were reading the purport of the verse from the 11th canto, it seemed like the mind is creating the reality in interaction with the three modes in the material world. So I think my question was, is duality then existing in our mind? It's not created by the material nature?
There's a verse like that, which I forget, but Lord Chaitanya speaks, it's Bengali. And I think he's speaking to Raghunath Das. But he's saying, good and bad in this material world is a complete illusion. In other words, it is simply a projection of the mind. Prabhupada would give the example of the same water, a nice cool pond of water, is a source of pleasure in summer and pain in winter. So it's just a question of our specific circumstances, and includes the mind, The mind is the center of the whole thing. And we're projecting it. And, it's like a dream world. The dream can be changed in an instant, depending on the vagaries of what the brain is doing, you know what I mean? But we, as the experiencer, are experiencing it as very real. We're frightened or we're attracted or whatever, So that's the nature of this material world. It's a very expert phantasmagoria created by Maya Devi. She has the thankless task of keeping us bewildered here in this way until we turn back to Krishna and start our path back to Godhead. So it's a fact. That's why you find that it just says your Matra Sparshita Kontiya, right at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita's instructions, that Krishna said you have to tolerate these dualities, which are, say, come and they go because the senses change and the circumstances change. And only one who can tolerate, Yaminabdiyante purusham purushasham samadukha sukham dhiram somitatvaya kalpade, who is eligible for self-realization, who is eligible for amrit, for getting eternal life, one who can remain dhira, equipoised, even in these dualities, you see. And so, because ultimately they come and they go, and therefore they have the quality of being unreal. Anything that's always changing is asat, and ultimately it doesn't exist. It doesn't have the existence quality that we place on it. That's an illusion. It's temporary and therefore is not real. So yeah, the dualities we see are a result of our own intelligence and our own mind. And that's why you see, Prabhupada gives the example of the hog. The living entity in that hog body may have been in a human body before. But in the hog body, his eating preferences are a lot different. He likes to eat stool, And Prabhupada says, even if you offer halva and stool, he'll take the stool, you know. But the same living entity was in the human body before and wouldn't even think of it. So it's all simply temporary and false. And so the Krishna consciousness means seeing all of this phantasmagoria as Krishna's show that he's ordered Maya to perform for us, to keep us illusioned until we approach the reality, you know. And the devotees, they don't wait. They go out and they try to find people who are a little bit receptive in order to plant a seed or plant a fire so that, you know, there'll be some change there. So that's what, you know, we're all fortunate that Prabhupada did that. And his genuine followers are doing the same thing, you know. Hare Krishna.
If you don't mind, just an extension on that question.
Okay, but it's getting late, but go ahead.
Right. So then, when we render devotional service is transcendental, but because we have our minds with us, we are imposing our dualities on that while we render that service, and hence we get affected by the result of that service, if it was positive or negative. This preaching program was successful, this one turned out like it flopped, and we are affected because of those because the mind is carrying those dualities. So how
because we're not pure devotees, therefore we tend to have some of that same kind of judgmental, you know, good and bad, hot and cold. Yeah, right, right. In other words, it can be tinged by the modes of nature. And so that's why we're always encouraged about, you know, pure devotional service. And Prabhupada would always explain, we're not concerned so much with the result. We're concerned with the effort, the genuineness of the effort. You may go out to distribute books, but the van breaks down, you don't even get to the spot, you know. Or you may go out and have extended days. But your effort at doing it is what is recognized by Krishna. It's always the motive and the heart that, you know. So if you're genuinely trying to serve Krishna, just like he'll accept, you know, or what was that famous pastime? Who was it, Dwaraka, who offered a banana peel? I think one of his, who is it?
Vidurani.
Vidur. And, you know, he was so much in ecstasy that he lost track of what he was doing, and instead of offering the banana, he offered the banana peel. But it was offered with extreme love and devotion, and Krishna ate the banana peel. He's tasting the love and devotion. So that's a different category. We're judging according to our material, you know. So that has to be, you know, we have to become free of that, you know. Let me take his question, otherwise he's going to get upset. Vijay, you're on.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. The quote from the purport, it is the last sentence of the purport. Quote,
it's easy to find.
Therefore, he is known ultimately as sarva-kāraṇa-kāraṇam, the cause of all causes, end quote. So based on this quote, my question is, how can I accommodate the fact that God is the cause of all causes, and let me be more exact, the perfect cause of all causes, when what happens is that he himself is not caused by anyone or anything?
Okay. I'm not sure how
that is my question.
How can we accommodate the idea that he himself is the cause of all causes, but he's not caused by anything?
Yes, because I think that for him to be the perfect cause of all causes, shouldn't he himself be there experiencing being caused by anyone or anything?
Nope. The quick answer is nope. The word sarva-kāraṇa-kāraṇam implies that he's not caused. Because as soon as you have someone else who's eligible to be a cause, but he's the cause of that. That's what sarva-kāraṇa-kāraṇam means. It falls into the category of achintya. That these are some things that you just cannot understand. You know, that Krishna is inconceivable, but he is the source of everything. Ahameva sameva gre nanya yatsadasaparam. that before there existed anything that we see, which is a series of cause and effects, I was there. Therefore, I'm not part of this whole machine of the material energy. Anyway, that's the best I can do.
No, oh, Prabhu, when you said before the existence of all the causes and effects, I was there. That is enough in order to answer my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's right there. That's the first of the Chatu Shlokis. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, we would